The subject that I'm going to speak about tonight is why I believe that international politics is essentially a nasty and brutish business, or put it in slightly different terms, a dangerous business where all states have to be on guard and worry about their security. Now, I come to this conclusion in large part because I believe that the structure of the international system matters greatly for how states behave. And the structure of the international system pushes states to compete with each other for power. And as a result, you get security competition that sometimes leads to war, and occasionally states are devastated in war, or even in a limited number of cases disappeared from the face of the earth. Exactly do I mean when I talk about the structure of the international system? I think there are three aspects of the structure that matter greatly. The first is that the international system is anarchic. And I'm sure, as most of you know, anarchy in social science speak means that there is no higher authority that sits above states. The international system is essentially comprised of states that are like pool balls on a table. And this means, as I'll talk about in a few minutes, that states can't turn to any higher authority if they get into trouble. So that's what we mean when we talk about anarchy. It's the opposite of hierarchy. The second structural aspect of the international system that matters is the fact that all of those states have some offensive military capability. Now, needless to say, it varies greatly across states and across time. The United States of America today has much greater offensive capability than, say, Poland or Switzerland, or certainly Belgium or Guatemala. But the fact of the matter is that Guatemala and Poland both have some offensive military capability. Again, the point is all states have some military capability that's offensive in nature. The third assumption, which is of enormous importance, involves intentions. Now, remember, my second assumption had to do with capabilities, and as many of you know, in the international relations literature, we distinguish between capabilities and intentions. So my second assumption was that all states have some offensive military capabilities, and my third assumption has to do with intentions. And the argument that I make with regard to intentions is that it is impossible to know with a high degree of certainty what the intentions of other states are. Now, why is this the case? Capabilities are very different than intentions, in large part because you can see and you can measure capabilities. During the Cold War, when I was your age, and we used to talk about the Soviet threat, we could count how many armored divisions they had, we could count how many tanks they had, how many fighter wings they had, how many SS-18s they had, how many attack submarines, because these were material capabilities that you could see. But intentions are not visible to the naked eye because intentions are in the heads of decision makers. And how can you possibly know what the intentions of other leaders are? They may say our intentions are benign or our intentions are malign, but as you all know, talk is cheap. Let me give you another example that has nothing to do with international relations that drives this point home. It has to do with divorce. Anytime two people get married, they invariably think that the intentions of the person that they're marrying are benign. Who's been married to somebody who you think has malign intentions towards you, right? But the fact of the matter is we have about a 50% divorce rate in the United States. Some of those divorces end up like the War of the Roses. Not pretty. What this tells you, this is a very depressing insight, I believe, but nevertheless an accurate one. What this tells you is that you can never be certain about the intentions of a person that you're marrying. You can never be certain that that person won't turn out to be Attila the Hun. Now, this is not to say, this is very important, forward. This is not to say that that person will turn out to be a telenovela, right? Because 50% of marriages do work out. But it's just to say you can't be certain. And the same thing is true with states. That the best way to defend yourself is to be very powerful. As we used to say when I was growing up in New York, to be the biggest and baddest dude on the block. Why? Because nobody fools around with you. If I'm out in the playground, and there's no higher authority in the playground to turn to if the bullies turn on me, and I'm a real wussy, I'm in real trouble. On the other hand, if I'm Joe Frazier or Muhammad Ali, you think anybody's going to mess around with me? No way. You want to be big. You want to be powerful. Almost all of you live in the United States. How many of you go to bed at night worried about Canada or Mexico or Guatemala or How many of you worry about that? None of you. You lived in a really small country and you had a couple gorillas on your border, you'd be very, very nervous. You want to be very big. You want to be very powerful. If you're Poland, it's 1930, you have one wish. One wish? You want that wish? I am not someone who believes that the United Nations is useless or has no role to play in international politics. But the problem is that the United Nations is not the 911. See, if the United Nations was the 911, if it was that higher authority that states could turn to, you understand my whole logic would collapse. Very important to understand that. My whole logic would collapse. My logic does not apply to your daily life inside the United States. Just to drive this point home. This young woman and I are doing a drug deal. Right? And I stiff her on the deal.
I don't think that would happen, but...
She cannot call the police. She cannot call her lawyer. She is in an anarchic system. And this is why people who do drug deals and people who did alcohol deals in the 30s always brought guns to the table. That's why they brought guns. This is why Milton Friedman wanted to legalize drugs, to take the violence out of it. It's basic realist logic, right? However, if we're doing a deal having to do with real estate and I stiff her, the end result is she can call her lawyer or call the police. You have hierarchy. To go back to the United Nations, you can't call the United Nations because the United Nations is not powerful enough. What is the United Nations? For those of you who are Americans, you are very lucky to live in the state that is the biggest and baddest dude on the planet. Thank you.